Hey everyone, Nick here from Whole Latte Love. Zach, we're back again.
We are indeed.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining us for the last segment of our Black Friday.
I messed up earlier. Yeah.
It's a little tongue twister.
It's a long day.
The Black Friday live stream series. We're doing our next kind of Heat Exchangers mid-range grinders showcase. So we've got some of my favorite machines, some that you've seen already if you've been tuning in earlier on our stream, and some really awesome grinders as well. So if you are tuning in during Black Friday, we have a lot of really great sales and deals going on, discounts on equipment, free gifts with purchase. So definitely head to the website, check out our sales page for more details on what we've got cooking. Some things are going to be while supplies last, so you really want to get in while the getting's good. So Zach, what have we got going on right now?
Well, behind us, we actually have some of my favorite grinders and a few heat exchangers.
That's right.
So, Nick, what defines a heat exchanger? I know you went into this earlier. I believe you were on that stream where we kind of defined, okay, what is a single boiler? What is a heat exchanger? What is a dual boiler? Who would want a heat exchanger?
That's a great question, Zach. And so first of all, to answer who would want a heat exchanger, anybody who drinks milk drinks consistently. So anybody who is using your espresso machine on a regular basis to produce milk drinks like lattes, a heat exchanger is a good consideration for you. Now, the way it works is you have one boiler and then you have a segment inside that boiler containing brew water, and then the rest of the boiler is heated to contain your steam and your hot water. So that's how a heat exchanger works generally. We have actually 3 great examples of how temperature control on a heat exchanger can be handled a little differently. We have the Rocket Appartamento TCA, which uses just 4 temperature settings. That's temperature control adjustment, if you're wondering what that stands for. We have the ECM Mechanica Max. Now, this is what I would call a smart heat exchanger. One of the few products that we have, one of the few heat exchangers that exists that can actually regulate boiler heating for that brew water temperature, and that's thanks to a second PID probe inside the thermosiphon. And then last but not least, we have our all new Rocket Espresso. This is the Mozzafiato Fast. This is one of Rocket's new heat exchanger espresso machines with a PID, and more importantly, with a heating cartridge built into that group. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means in just a moment. Now, if you are tuning in live, we have comments down on a screen right below the one that I'm looking at right now. So ask your questions. We'll get you some answers. We are raring to go there. So anything that you need more clarification on, or even if you have questions about other espresso or coffee related topics, throw them in the chat and we are happy to get you an answer if we can. So Zach, we'll start things off with the Appartamento TCA. So this is a machine very near and dear to me. If we want to get a little closer to it, this is a Whole Latte Love exclusive color. So this housing, this matte white housing, that's exclusive here at Whole Latte Love. And what you're seeing on this machine are 2 of our own customizations now. We have our Vitamin walnut accents on this, and then we also have a flow control device in our Whole Latte Love flow control paddle, also made in conjunction with Vitamin. So you'll notice, obviously, this shape is designed, and we actually had it open all the way, to make it easier to get hands-on with the device. So you can do multiple full rotations. That's the idea behind this design. So it's compact enough that you can rotate it all the way, but it's still large enough that you have a little bit easier time manipulating it than you do with the flow control ball. So the Appartamento TCA, like I said, that stands for Temperature Control Adjustment, and it uses a NTC probe in the boiler, which keeps the temperature tracked, and then you use a 4-setting PID essentially to change that temperature. So if I turn the boiler, or the machine off rather, and I lift our brew lever, this is actually how we'll begin to change that temperature. And so this is actually really cool too, because with the flow control device, I can actually close the group so that when I raise this lever, I'm not having a bunch of water basically leaving the machine. So leaving that lever up and then powering on the machine, we're going to see our LED lamp is going to switch to yellow. And then by going down and then up, we can actually see what our temperature is currently set to, and we can change it. So the number of flickers basically corresponds to the temperature. So we're at setting 2 of 4 temperatures here, which is the best for a medium roast coffee, and it's going to get you fairly good steam power as well. Raise that lever if you want, and that will lock in now. And then by going down, we can confirm if we want eco mode, yes or no, using that same process of raising and lowering. So then when we power the machine off, turn it back on, it will remember the temperature setting that we used. So Rocket actually describes this as being a feature that's, at least to them, more oriented around steam pressure, with each increment changing the pressure by about 1/10 of a bar between around 0.9 and 1.3. So Zach, you're already grinding for me. So what do we got here grinder-wise, by the way?
I'm ready for a shot. So over here, we actually have the Rev
You say you're
Steel.
revved up, right?
I am so revved up. So this is the new Giotto Rev Steel. So again, with its other grinders, it's 83 millimeter burrs, kind of like its predecessor, the E37S, which happened to be one of our favorite grinders. But now it's kind of come to the modern age, and we have grind by weight technology, specifically the WHAM. So this module on the bottom, you can actually remove it, or it can be added on if you buy the base models without the WHAM module for a later date. Let's say you decide that you kind of want to just grind by time to begin with, and then later on buy the actual module. It's as simple as a plug and play.
Yeah, so basically the grind by time model uses the same exact start switch as the Giotto E37S. So you're grinding by time there, still very, very fast. And then like Zach said, though, WHAM or weight adjustment module, there is a version that you can buy basically pre-installed, or you can very easily install a WHAM on a time-based rev later on. And so I do see we have a question. I want to improve my compact E6 looking at the Fiorenzato F83 or Melkönig 65 grind by weight. So I'm not as familiar with things like the Fiorenzato, but we do have the Melkönig grind by weight grinders. So we specifically have the grind by sync versions of the E65. So those are really interesting because they also use a digital burr positioning system similar to the Giotto Rev. Now, on the Melkönig, one of the things to think about, at least on the grind by sync grinder, is that burr is actually being adjusted internally using a motor rather than doing it by hand. And so ultimately, you do need to get used to setting the burr based on the actual distance measured in microns, which, you know, not everyone really is used to. They're kind of more used to just feeling out how that goes. But we have been really satisfied with the Melkönigs, obviously. In terms of grind by weight as well, I think the Rev is certainly worth your consideration. So if we can get close to the screen, actually, Zach talked a little bit about the grind by weight functionality, but the other major player when it comes to this grinder is going to be what Giotto calls Align, which stands for Advanced Leveling Intelligent Grinding Nexus. And all that really means is that the burr position is tracked digitally. So we're just getting that into focus for you guys so you can see it. But there's a scale that you can track the position on, and you can actually pin the position. So you can see Zach's at 5.8 right now. He could pin that and then go in and make an adjustment again to remember where the setting was. Now, on a grinder like the Melkönig, on the grind by syncs at least, that is a little bit more of kind of an IoT product. You are creating different grinding profiles for different coffees. Now, the thing to remember is that if you're not somebody who is, let's say, super tech savvy, or it's just more than you're willing to, you know, kind of use, I think something like what Giotto has implemented here is really kind of the next best thing because it's very, very simple to adjust and to track.
Yeah, and it's all about controlling variables. Something that will change over time is when you're going finer or coarser, that gram will actually change. So if you have a grind by time grinder, it's another variable that you kind of have to play with. It's like, oh, and then there's time on top of this world of variables that already exist.
Yeah,
so.
Grind by weight definitely makes it much easier to dial in because every time you change your grind setting, you are ultimately changing how much coffee is being dispensed in a particular amount of time. And so that's why when you're actively weighing and dispensing by weight, you can make sure that you're consistent even as the grind changes. So you're very welcome. We're happy to answer. And I see another question from JJ Brewer. In terms of guests who want decaf, guests who want caffeinated coffee, really, if you're using a full semi-auto setup like the one that we have back here, personally, I would say the best workflow for that would be single dosing.
Yeah, I would say single dosing is probably the best option. Something like the Single Dose Pro that we have right behind us.
The Oro Single Dose Pro from Eureka.
Yeah, so I think Eureka does a great job with their single dosing. Very affordable too on the price range.
Yeah, something like the Zero even from Eureka, the new 065's getting closer to that $500 price point. So, even more affordable for sure. If you're not familiar with single dosing, that's basically measuring out exactly the amount of coffee that you want for every dose and then grinding just that specific coffee. And so that way you can do all of your caffeine first, then get all your decaf second, and then basically just adjust as needed. But,
and it also saves a lot of room on your bar as well. So you don't want necessarily a bunch of grinders on your bar. I personally have a bunch of grinders on my bar, but that's aside the point. So I think all you really need is one good single dose, and then you can go ahead and switch between different kinds of coffees and also store your coffee better.
Yeah. So let's pull our shot, though. It's probably sat for quite a while now, but
yeah, it's still warm. At least we're definitely looking to keep these portafilters warm as well.
So 1 1/4 gets us to stock. So let's just start maybe around half. So actually take that out for one more second, Zach, just so we can really demonstrate our reduced flow versus our increased flow so that people can see. It's just going to be a little gentler stream of water. And so we will use our scale. Actually, the TCA, as much as I love it, it actually does not have a built-in shot timer. Are there grinder options that allow both? So to answer that question, yes, the Giotto Life X grinder has the option to use a full bean hopper, and it also has a single dose attachment. So,
which is quite unique in that fact too. There's not too many grinders out there in the world that have both options, also readily available and very easy to switch between the two.
Yes, and so I would say personally that would probably be my choice. The Life X, we had it in earlier streams, but a really great grinder just for somebody who wants to experiment with a lot of brew methods. It is all purpose. You do have one burr that is blind, basically, and then the grind setting matches up. So essentially, we were at 7 the other day with our Life X for our regular drip coffee makers. Anytime you go back to 7, you're always going to be at drip coffee because one turn of the knob is the full range of motion. So, and JJ, I see you just went from a number 2 commenter to the number 1 commenter. So, congrats on your promotion there. And so, Zach, what are you doing? This is very ambitious.
So, this is one thing that you can do with these heat exchangers is that you can steam and brew at the same exact time.
That's right. And so that, again, goes back to what I was saying, which is, who is this for? It's for somebody who likes to drink milk drinks. And so that's not to say that you obviously can't use this machine for just espresso, but at the same time, the way that the boiler is designed, you are always going to be producing steam in that boiler. And so you will always need the extra heat up time for it, and it will also consume the energy for that as well. And so for me, I think that if you're not a milk drinker, maybe consider a single boiler.
Been doing pretty good with my latte art all day, but this seems a little thin, which is again my fault, but
Zach says as he proceeds to,
do a nice little rosetta.
Do a nice rosetta, yeah. A little flex there. Very nice. So I love that. That's our Varia sip cup as well,
which we've been actually using all day to kind of show the fact that we can get a nice amount of foam. You can see right through it, and I can actually touch it just fine.
Yeah, the double wall installation makes those cups you can pick them up immediately after you're done. Other cups that we carry, like our Quintos, I love them, but the wall is very thin. So, all right, beneath the Meyerlurk, I think that's I have no clue. Elder Scrolls?
Could be.
Reference,
we'll see.
Maybe?
We'll see.
I don't know. So let's see. I'm considering the ECM Mechanica Max or the Becerra Sole. Are there any notable pros and cons to either machine? Yeah, so I think that it comes down to how sophisticated an experience you want. So the Sole, if we start with that, is going to be a much more just straightforward experience. The PID controller does not have any additional functionality besides simply setting the temperature, and then you can also change between Celsius and Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Very old school, very much kind of a retro modern new design. Lots of color options, obviously.
Oh yeah.
The Mechanica Max is really going to be sort of like the ultimate machine if you're looking for value when it comes to, yes, trying to brew and steam at the same time, regularly making milk drinks, but then wanting the control over your brew water temperature. Because inside the Mechanica Max, and we can talk about it because we're about to move on to this machine, you have the PID inside the thermosiphon. And so what that means is you are actually seeing the temperature of the water that it's putting out. And there are two modes that you can operate the Mechanica Max in. You can either have the boiler regulate its heating based on the temperature inside the heat exchanger itself, or you can have it heat for steam, but still give you a flush reminder that tells you to flush the boiler so that it's the correct temperature before brewing. So,
and that is what gives it that smart heat exchanger definition there.
Yeah.
So that's why it is kind of on that upper echelon of what I would say heat exchangers can be. It's definitely new, something that we haven't really seen before with all of that ability within a heat exchanger. And it also comes to then a hard choice between a dual boiler and something like the ECM.
Well, and I think too, when you start looking at price point, right, and you start looking at, where do I want the rest of my, budget to go? If you go with a machine like the Mechanica Max, that is going to free up more room in your budget for a grinder and some scales and other accessories. Whereas if you do go for a dual boiler, for example, you are going to run into an issue where, if you have a strict budget that you're trying to keep to, you may not have as much room to play. Now, in terms of maybe downsides for the Mechanica Max, it's definitely a much more sophisticated product. So you are going to need to learn a little bit more about how to operate it in order to use it successfully. And on top of that, it is a slightly smaller boiler. I would say that the steam pressure is a little bit lower on something than the Sole. Like Becerra really kind of blasts when it comes to steam pressure. So those are kind of the only things, but I mean,
it's a material difference too between brass or
so it's a stainless boiler in the Mechanica Max, and then it's a copper boiler inside the Sole. So let's actually get up close though. We've talked a lot. Let's poke some buttons for a moment. So we also featured here, this is our whole Autoliv exclusive. This is the matte black Mechanica Max. So you have basically a beautiful finish on our cup tray up here even, and the drip tray. So essentially all blacked out with none of the typical chrome outside of the E61 here. And to access our settings here, so I see that we're still in Celsius, we're just gonna go in and we're gonna press and hold both of these buttons. So that gets us in, you'll see T1, that's our brew temperature. T2 is our steam temperature. Then we can set if we want a flush reminder, do we want pre-infusion, eco mode, a cleaning reminder for back flushing, reset for those. AUS stands for Advanced User Settings. Then we have BTC, which is our brew temperature control mode. We have additional features for wake up time. We have a ability to track liters as well. You can program a clock and a time of day. You can switch between whether you want this to be tank operated or fed by a water line. So just really a ton of available options on this machine. But let's go into specifically T1, and you can see now we have it set to 200, okay? T2, 255. If we just exit this menu now, we'll see the machine go into 205 on the display because right now, or 256, sorry, 255, because we're not accounting for brew temperature control. We're just in the most basic mode this machine can be in, right? So actually, I think, Mike, you've got a better view if you want to go back to that one. I'm going to basically go in now because what we're going to do is we're going to press and hold again, and we're going to go now doing it at an angle. I was actually watching the screen rather than looking at this, but I am going to look at the screen now. It's just a little easier for me. So brew temperature control is off. We're going to go to BTC2, right? And so what this means is that the machine essentially has 3 heating settings, okay? And so on BTC1, it heats the boiler the slowest, meaning that the temperature will be the most stable for the longest time. You'll notice now the screen says 204 degrees, and that's the actual temperature inside of the heat exchanger. So that, if we were to brew, is what comes out, right? And even though we set it to 200, it's a heat exchanger. The temperature will, over time, still get a little hotter. Now, BTC2 is kind of even heating, so it heats up a little more quickly, and then it stays at the temperature for a little bit less time than BTC1. And then when you go to BTC3, the boiler heats up the fastest, but it just means that it has the greatest likelihood of overshooting your set temperature, just because, again, it's a heat exchanger, so you do lose temperature through the thermosiphon as water pumps up to the group, and then the group actively is just getting cooled by being exposed to the air. If I were to put a cold rag on this, like Mark likes to do, you can see the temperature drop fairly significantly, right? But this is a really sophisticated machine, and we're obviously seeing the temperature going down now to 202 because we are in BTC mode, and the boiler is trying now to regulate temperature and heating for our extraction. And obviously still we can froth milk at the same time because this is a heat exchanger machine. So go ahead there, Zach.
Only a few seconds later and we have 17 grams. So we're just going to keep things kind of consistent throughout on this puck preparation using that rev.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really nice tools from Wiedemann too. I love we've got synergy. Actually, no, we don't have synergy. We had synergy with the rocket. We don't have synergy with our ECM here, but this is the dosing funnel from Wiedemann. We've got the new V-Decent tampers as well, the WDT tool, all available on our website. So if you look to get some of those custom wood accents, you can obviously get the accessories as well. So looking very nice though.
All
and
right.
If you guys have any other questions, definitely let us know. But yeah, Zach, so
we're going to compare the steam pressure. I mean, as we saw in the Appartamento, that was really quick.
Yeah.
You have to be pretty skilled in order to do so. I think these heat exchangers, that is quite an upgrade from your single boiler if you are thinking about upgrading. Even brewing and steaming at the same time can be quite the task. So I suggest maybe doing that over time, not right away. And it looks like we don't even need to do a cooling flush. We're just going to go ahead and grab our scale.
I'm just making sure too our rocket over here stays awake by the time we get to our Giotto Fast.
All right. And we're purged and ready to go.
All right. So where are you going to set your flow controller? Do you already have
I'm actually going to have it pretty closed right now.
And that sound is a little different. This machine actually does have a rotary pump, so there is a higher max flow rate as well. So obviously getting dialed in for 3 different machines can be a little tricky at times.
And because of that manual flow control, I kind of just started these a little bit separately.
Yeah.
Not flexing too many skills today.
Well, you'll have a second latte. I feel like I have to pour the third one just to, at least do a little something for us here.
All right, so already this is just a little bit longer than the TCA, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that again is sort of that's the dance that you do with the heat exchanger machine, because on one hand, yes, you want to have that milk on demand with that steam, but at the same time, you do want to make sure, especially on a machine like this one, that the water in the actual thermosiphon isn't too hot. And so that is really kind of where the Mechanica Max, to me, is sort of the best of both worlds. So let's see what we got going on here, Zach. Okay. I think I'm seeing it come together. I'm seeing some stacks.
Some stacks.
Very nice.
And some racks. All right.
And, one thing I would say, too, just as far as steam is concerned, is more isn't necessarily always going to be better. And the reason for that is obviously if you can't control the output on the machine, if you have a hard time controlling that pressure, right, maybe you don't want the steam to be as powerful as it can be because it's just too much for you to control. And that's where, too, getting a handle on different size pitchers or different amounts of milk, different volumes, can make a pretty big difference because ultimately, right, you're going to want to froth in the way that's best suited to your skill level and your comfort and ultimately the kinds of drinks that you're making as well.
Definitely. So I think the biggest step up that you can see when getting to a heat exchanger and you're starting to froth milk and you're starting to pour latte art, starting to get into all those different nuances that come with getting a heat exchanger, you'll notice that you can start getting that bigger pitcher because it can handle it. It has that kind of penetration. It has that steam power now and has that control. So you don't really need these smaller pitchers as well because it can become very fast process. So just adding a little bit more milk, that's like the first thing I like to teach people when kind of dialing in a lot of your milk texture.
And, you know, I will say, too, milk is sort of the ultimate equalizer when it comes to drinks because a lot of the minor flaws that may have occurred during your extraction can very easily be masked in a milk drink. So that's not to say that you shouldn't try to pull the best shots that you can, but it can be a little more forgiving than if you're just brewing straight espresso.
And oftentimes we would be just brewing straight espresso, tasting the difference between these. But really when we start talking about heat exchange, it's really the ability that we can now steam and pull espresso at the same time. So we really want to kind of show that off. But we did actually try shots on many of these machines throughout the day. So if you didn't see any of those and see any taste comparisons between any of these machines, I definitely suggest checking those out.
Yeah, and so if we wanted to turn off brew temperature control mode and just go into standard boiler operation, we can have the machine heat hotter and then have it tell us, hey, flush, and we can program in the flush reminder. So that is sort of the alternative method. For me personally, my preference when using the Mechanica Max is to use that brew temperature control mode because ultimately that's what really sets it apart from other heat exchangers. And I think taking a little bit longer to froth milk is not a game changer. But if you're doing a lot of entertaining, right, and you love the way the Soleil looks, I think it'd be a perfectly good option there too. Yeah,
well, it's really important that you just hit the right temperatures. Yes, getting to those temperatures a little bit faster will help with a lot of texture issues that you might come across. But in general, as long as you are penetrating all of your milk and heating it up all pretty well, then there should be no issue.
So hopefully that answers your question. Great information. Yeah, oh, absolutely. So I was going to say, if anyone has any more questions, we're about to move on to our third and final machine. So this is one that we've teased a few times in some of our videos and I think previous streams, but I'm not sure if we've ever really gone too in depth with it. So behind me now, how's that for your reveal there? That is the Rocket Espresso. This in particular is the Rocket Espresso Giotto Fast. So this has been customized using some vitamin wood accents. These are blackened oak, so I know it looks similar to the original, but we actually have the walnut and the olive wood, so I kind of wanted to give you the full spectrum of options there. So we do have the flow control device installed as well. And what really matters about this machine, what's really going to set this apart from the other machines from Rocket Espresso is the brew group here. So I don't know if we can get any closer to that or if we have any other angles, maybe a slightly overhead angle to show. Rocket Espresso, when they released the Appartamento TCA, actually redesigned their brew group. So a lot of people like to, you know, kind of make commentary about the E61 group. I think like it can be an easy target sometimes. And
it's been around for so long. So.
It's been around for a really long time. And, you know, I think one of the most common criticisms just has to do with heat up times. And so we saw, starting with ECM with the Synchronica 2, the inclusion of a cartridge heater that can actively heat the group with electricity. And now this is not totally unfamiliar. So Betzera has, in their BZ groups, an electric heater. You have the Stone espresso machines, which has an electrically heated group as well. But this is essentially taking that E61 design, which is still very, very flexible in terms of upgrades like flow control, different screens that you can get, the ability to put something like a press sensor on there, and then also addressing the heat up issue with the inclusion of a heating element. So the TCA has the same group as the fast machines, but it does not have a heating element. So there are two components inside this group, so they made it a little bit bigger so they have room to embed them in the back, but we have a temperature probe and a heating element, and that probe actively looks at the temperature of the brew group, and the heating element obviously is there to heat it up electrically. So in conversation with Rocket, I believe that the number is 90 degrees Celsius or around 194 degrees Fahrenheit. That is how hot the basically machine will let the heating element take this group to. So it will stop heating it once it gets to that point, at which point further heating and maintenance of heat is handled by the thermosiphon. So if we go in, we actually have our PID controls down here. And if I press and hold on this third one, so first we're going to wake up the screen, mind you. So the natural state of the screen is that it actually shuts off. We have our boiler temperature, which is 253, and we have our group temperature right now, which is 204. And so that's really, really nice. Now, you can't actually change any of the parameters surrounding group heating. You simply can make sure that it gets heated.
And now this is a huge change too, might I add, of Rocket actually adding now a screen to one of their machines. As they tried to attribute to like the TCA Appartamento earlier, they kept the screen out still.
Yes, they did.
To kind of keep this more simple analog sort of style and feel.
Yeah.
But when they did choose a screen over here, I feel like they went with a really quality screen as well. And I do like the larger
It's a nice screen. It's very subtle. Like I said, it does power off. I see you took my portafilter away from me.
I did.
You're not going to let me brew anything.
Oh, do you want to do
the
Eureka?
We'll plug it back into our W75 here. But we do have a comment. So is the Stone the only one with a heater in that budget? And so to answer your question, when it comes to a very kind of entry-level heat exchanger price point-wise, yeah, the Stone's around, I want to say like $1,200, $1,300, depending on what style you get. And the way that the Stone works is it is a heat exchanger, and then there's a 200-watt heating element inside the group itself. And so the water is actually finished heating in the group by that heating element. And in our testing, it's actually fairly consistent. For a machine that doesn't have a PID controller and is also a heat exchanger, you were maybe plus minus like 2 or so degrees from 200, over under, right? And the cool thing is the Stone's group, despite the fact that it is not an E61 group, can still accept E61 portafilters and E61 shower screens. So it's not hard to find third-party accessories that work for it. So if you really like milk drinks, I think the Stone is terrific. Personally, I just love how compact it is. Like I love the compactness of machines, and it's like very neat to me that there's something like that.
Yeah, no, I think it has its own sort of aesthetic, and again, it's so modular because of that E61 style portafilter. And honestly, the steam pressure reminds me something similar to the Mechanica Max. The Mechanica Max being, pretty well outside the price range of the Stone, but very similar feel behind that steam. So I feel like it's nice, dry. I've gotten some great pours. I think earlier, if you tuned in, I actually did do a seahorse with the Stone. So.
Yeah, it's very possible to froth milk. Not necessary for you to do, but the Stone also is compatible with Rocket's set of additional steam tips. So you can add a 3 or multiple 4-hole tips to it, depending on how you like to froth. You can get good steam power and a good roll, but it is a smaller boiler. So there is going to be a little bit more recovery time in between drinks, but it's perfectly capable of knocking out, 1 or 2 drinks easily. And then, you want to probably give it a moment to rest after that.
Yeah, although this one's called the Appartamento, I feel like that one is kind of the king of the apartments. So I feel like it fits perfectly within small spaces.
Yeah, that's like the studio Appartamento, perhaps. Exactly. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question, but definitely let us know if you need some more details. But yeah, so we have the Eureka Atom W75. So this is one of Eureka's weight-based grinders. So I actually have an 18-gram basket. This is a Bob 18 from Barista Improving Taste. So what I'm going to do is actually just change our dose right on our screen here. And we're going to go from 16.5 to 18. And all you do is you put the portafilter into the cradle. and then you grind and that's it. So just like the Rev, you do have on-demand grinding, automatic detection of the portafilter, so it will tear out and it will start to dispense. So a lot of people they love Eureka's weight-based grinders. The Mignons are very, very popular, like the Mignon Libras, for instance. I can already tell this grind is going to be a little too coarse. So we can take a look. We can see what we can do with the flow control to kind of save it. But then we're going to go back to what I was saying and what you were saying about how it's easier to get dialed in with a weight-based grinder. But we'll go and give this some business. Now, if you're thinking about a grinder like the Atom W65 or 75 versus a Mignon Libra 65 AP, for example, key difference is just going to be that speed more than anything else. Even if they have the same burrs, motor's more powerful and you have a faster output on your Atom versus your Mignon.
And one key difference too between the Giotto and anything that you'll find from Eureka is also taste. I feel like Eureka caters towards a lot of different kinds of tastes. I've always really enjoyed it with maybe your medium and dark roasts. Just the geometry and the profile of those grinds that are actually coming out. I specifically really like with maybe like our Crema Wave, where the Giotto, you can actually mess around with a lot of different kinds of light roasts and it handles it no issue whatsoever. All right, so you are utilizing our flow control. It does look a little coarse. So
it's a little coarse, yeah. I mean, I'm keeping I'm keeping it pretty tame back here on the paddle, but
oh, there we are. 22 seconds.
Yeah, 22 seconds.
That is one great thing about having that flow paddle. I feel like if your shot is kind of escaping you or you're finding any channeling, you can easily come back to something that's going to still suit and pair really well with milk. So makes everything a little bit more doable and a little less coffee waste. I mean, grinding by weight in general produces less coffee waste because you're grinding by weight and you know exactly what the weight is going to come out. And I feel like you can triangulate and find your grind size a lot better that way. It looks like Nick wants to cover his steaming. I don't know if he's trying to hide it or not.
I don't think I'm trying to hide it.
I think he's actually trying to show off his cool shirt. But
maybe just a little bit. Now, well, the thing is we have to dial in again, right? So that means I get 2 chances to steam here.
Ah, okay.
But really good power.
Have to triangulate.
You know, one thing just to point out too is that the Mozzafiato, the Giotto Fast machines actually have the same boiler and the same NTC probe as the Appartamento TCA. So if you're kind of curious about, you know, capacities, you're curious about, I'm just gonna pour off a little here. Curious about capacities.
Pro move.
Curious about, I've seen many a barista do it at latte art competitions. So, but the two are very similar, in fact. And the machines now too have these beautiful one-piece steel frames. So way too much foam on that one. And so that one-piece frame just helps prevent the machine from
gorgeous texture.
Bending basically during shipping. So Rocket previously would weld the drip trays on, and now there's actually a single piece frame that runs the full length of the machine, which is much appreciated compared to, obviously, the way that they had done things in the past. So let's go ahead and get this dialed in, because you can also use the grinder in manual mode. And I'm not sure if any of you have ever done this with one of Eureka's weight-based grinders, but we'll press our little Burr icon down here. You still have to get the portafilter in so it tears, and then you can press and hold. And the reason I want to do that is because I just want to fine this up just a little bit. So I want my burrs to be turning.
And you do want to ensure that you're turning your burrs every single time that you're going finer. This is with any grinder, except for a single dose when you don't actually have coffee inside your burrs, because all of those coarser grinds are actually going to get stuck and get crushed inside the burrs. And you might have a likelihood of actually then jamming your burrs.
Yes, exactly. So
not a fun time.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You always want to make sure that your burrs are turning, that the motor is running. So we'll see. I just made a little bit of an adjustment there. I ran the motor for a little bit longer too, just to make sure I cleared out the old coffee that's in there. So Zach,
did you dry it off all the way?
Maybe. That might be a barista sin right there.
It might be channeling a little bit. So if you don't actually dry off your portafilter, all the water will actually create lots of paths for that water to then go. Again, it's just about paths of least resistance, and water will cause that.
So we are a little bit finer here. Now we are at 22 seconds before. Still might even want to take that just a smidge further. But again, the great thing is, first of all, with flow control, I don't necessarily need to burn every shot because I could use the device to slow down the extraction. And on top of that, though, like I was saying, as I adjust my grind, because we're grinding by weight, we actually are going to make sure that we get the same dose every time. So we'll go back in again. So last time it was about 22 seconds for that 36 grams. We've got our dynamic duo of the Varia Sip Cups and the Varia AccuPro.
And I poured your milk for you.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
So one issue too with a lot of these heat exchangers, and when you're looking at these sorts of upgrades too, you might think that, oh, all I need is a better machine, but that's not quite true. We really have to look at these grinders at the same time we are looking at the machine. Like, your grinder has to be able to handle what now your machine can do. I think grinders, that should have the most of your budgeting anyways.
And that was, we wound up with 38 in just 26 seconds. So I would say definitely more in line with what we're looking to do here.
Can I try steaming it for you?
Oh, no,
And then you can pour it?
You've steamed enough. You've steamed
I know.
enough. I'll go
I've
on
been
this
very
side, though,
selfish
so
with
that
my
people
steaming.
can see me steam this time. And as Zach said, I was blocking. Not intentional, of course.
He's blocking all of his secrets of steaming.
The secrets of steam.
The secrets of steam.
But really good power, honestly, on these machines.
Yeah, it's a great vortex that you have going on. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yep.
Almost more than this pitcher can
See,
even
I could
handle.
just hear how strong it is too, which is what makes me want to go try it. I love hearing just like a very powerful steam wand.
Well,
I feel like you can get just such a great texture off of that too. There's a sort of thinness that you want for some latte art that you can achieve on really high pressure to where it's still it has a good dexterity to it.
I mean, if you want, you can froth one more.
Maybe, we'll see.
But
All right, let's see the pour.
it's just very foamy. So
A little cappuccino. And I would define that as a cappuccino and a little heart. Perfect.
yeah. So there we go. But
Ghostly heart.
very, very powerful, obviously. We do have the machine set to its highest temperature, which is 253 degrees. So the steam power is going to be really kind of explosive. I find that with Rocket's heat exchangers, as well as with Betzera's, the heat exchangers typically have just higher pressure for the steam. So Betzera uses copper. Rocket uses generally copper with brass end plates. So this is a horizontally mounted boiler. And then between the Appartamento TCA, Giotto and Giotto Fast V and our style machines, it is going to be all the same boiler. So you will get a very similar performance across all of those machines.
So I would say, without actually trying, that might have had the best steam pressure
Yeah.
out of all of the machines that we have up. Which is hard to say because Mechanica Max has notoriously been one of my favorite machines to really froth on. I felt like I've always had really good milk texture. It had a really nice dryness to it. But more of these tests we've actually gone through in further videos too. If you ever need any more information specifically about each one of these machines, especially the Mechanica Max, we do have some more in-depth videos on YouTube.
That's right. And so, I mean, I'll tell you what, go ahead, show off on
All right.
one of the Rockets here. We've got our last grinder as well that we haven't talked about yet, but I would like to say a little bit. I actually mentioned it when we were talking to JB Brewer earlier, which is the Mignon Oro Single Dose Pro. So this is an update to Eureka's Mignon Single Dose Pro. There's the new king size knob that actually tracks your position based on how many rotations you've made. So this fixes an issue that is commonplace on a lot of grinders with stepless adjustment, which is that you can actually rotate this knob more than one complete revolution. So here, I'll I'll let you get in there. Oh, wait, you're not going to use our Oro here?
Oh, we totally can. All right, so this is fresh out of the box too. So I think we can kind of go through the process of how we would really triangulate with something like a single dose too.
Yeah.
And we'd really just kind of throw in some coffee beans and really feel like how we were doing all of our other grinders. It's a lot of look feel. But the biggest difference too between a lot of our Eureka grinders that you've seen maybe previously, or maybe the Eureka grinder that you currently have at home, is that this does have a larger knob now.
Yeah.
So you can actually see at a very fine parameter of what grind size you're at. So you can go back and recall for different kinds of coffees.
Right. So you're actually tracking the number of rotations that you made, and then also your specific coordinate within it. I mean, and you can froth with that because or brew with that and froth because you know, I do want to touch on something else too about the Oro Single Dose Pro. Is that we've talked about these before. We've got them lined up in front of us. Eureka has produced a series of burrs referred to as the Black Diamond burrs that we have in front of us. So these feature a treatment and process that essentially makes them much harder than traditional burrs, stock ones that you would get in the box with the grinder. Now, I'll try to get one a little closer so you can see there.
And as what we've looked through with geometry and the material of what we're using.
Maybe come back in front, Mike, and we can just get it like this right here. These burrs have what's called a blind surface. And so it's only one of the two burrs, right? And essentially it's mounted from behind. So there are screws that go in through the back so that you have an uninterrupted cutting surface. And that helps to reduce retention, increase speed, and improve, ultimately, our particle consistency. Now, the burrs from the Black Diamond series are actually optimized with different geometries on the teeth for different styles of brewing. And so you have an espresso specialty burr, a brew specialty burr, a Italian espresso specialty burr, and an all-purpose burr as well. And I bring these up because we do get asked a lot, hey, my Mignon Libra AP has the same 65 millimeter burr set as the Oro Single Dose Pro. Can I buy all of these burrs? And the short answer is no. Eureka ultimately has these burrs paired up based on their recommendations, based on the motor inside the grinder. So what's really cool about the Single Dose Pro that we have here is ultimately that if you're somebody who really wants to go all in on single dose grinding and multi-purpose grinding, you can get any of these burr sets for it and you can use them and update the grinder. If you don't have the Oro Single Dose Pro, you are going to want to look at which burr is compatible with your grinder. So, and how those work is, we have charts available that you can take a look at on the product page. Each one produces a different grinding range that's optimized for a particular style of grinding. And so, Zach, what did you think of the steam pressure that we had there on the Rocket?
The fast is fast.
The fast is very fast.
The fast
yeah.
is very fast.
You know, blink and you miss it sort of fast.
Yeah, definitely. But what we were talking about earlier with geometries is that is one thing that we've known as of recently. There's more research into it that geometry really matters with flavor. The more fines that it's creating, the particle distribution that it's creating, creates a different flavor throughout different kinds of coffees. It doesn't really even matter what roast it is, but these are more designed for different roast profiles.
Yeah. And so these grinders, obviously, you've got some nice oak accents on them, a good angle to reduce retention. That new knob is great, especially for multi-purpose use, because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to track your actual setting. If you were really looking to go all in when it comes to burrs, experimentation, and also introduce conical versus flat and variable RPMs, what grinder am I talking about, Zach?
We are talking about the VS6.
That's right, the Varia VS6, which we featured earlier. So I would just say keep your eyes peeled, Varia-wise, because we've got some cool stuff coming. But basically, the VS6 is the grinder if you're somebody who's looking to experiment, use multiple brew methods, really tell the difference between flat and conical, because You can actually change out the entire Burr cone, put in a cone, put in flats, and see for yourself what the difference is.
And if you're interested in the story of Varia, we're actually going to be releasing a lot of different kinds of stories over the next couple days within our social media. You'll actually see one of our first reposts today if you head to our Instagram, really highlighting the details of Varia's story that will be coming out in recent days.
Yeah, and just a little shout out too, if you have been paying attention on our website, we have all new colors of the Varia Flow that have just dropped, available in candy, shadow, and rose. And then we have new Varia filter papers as well with different porosities. So basically you can have a slower or a faster pour based on how you like to brew the coffee you're making, and then combine that with the actual flow discs as well, or the flow screens, to really customize your pour over.
Yeah, so I really like using the flows. It's something really fun to mess around with. If you're into heat exchangers and flow control, I feel like you would also like messing around with the flow and different variabilities that you can find within the same coffee that you're pulling on espresso on something like a slow bar.
All right, so Varia Flow, different flow screens, different papers.
Okay.
X Bloom on top of that.
X Bloom on top of that.
That's right.
Yes.
And just go all in and control for everything.
Yeah, because you can just put the flow on the X Bloom and have it brew your way every time.
That's true.
So
anyway, unless we have any other questions, we've kind of talked our way through a few of these machines. Just to recap, Appartamento TCA, this is the machine that you want to look at if you're looking to really personalize a espresso machine for your kitchen in particular. This is, like I said, our exclusive white housing with our vitamin walnut accents. But if you look on the website, on several versions of the Appartamento TCA, we actually have 12 different panel inserts that can be combined with those different wood accents. So check that out, exclusive to Whole Latte Love. A huge amount of customization. Flow paddle obviously available as well, as many as potentially 96 options for just one housing, mind you. Moving up to our Mechanica Max, this really is sort of the ultimate heat exchanger in terms of sophistication and control. If you're somebody who really wants to froth milk, you want to save some room in your budget for maybe your grinder and a few other things, and you really want that stable control, Mechanica Max is the machine for you. Also available in stainless and the custom matte black that's exclusive at Whole Latte Love with vitamin accents. And then lastly, just the Fast machine, like you were talking about, Zach, if you want to just say a few words about that one.
yeah, I think the Fast machine, I think between the Matafiato and the Giotto, that really depends on what kind of style you're looking for. They do have a different kind of form to it. And then you can actually choose between a Vibe pump and the rotary. So between the V and R. So that's going to be available for kind of whoever you are. I think an R would be top tier. On both performance, and then pairing something like that with like a press sensor, I think that's going to be something really fun to play with, because matching those graphs on a rotary pump is very smooth, very fun. It's very game-like. I think this machine, especially with its new PID, it's so much control. And also, if you're practicing for a latte art competition, I feel like this is the way to go.
Yeah, I need a little more practice. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. If you've stuck with us this whole time, that's amazing. We love your comments. We love your questions. So make sure to tune in again. We will be back on Monday. But if you've missed any streams, we are also going to be doing premieres of the streams throughout the weekend with people moderating who can reply to you. So if you do have questions and you're looking to get a live answer, make sure to check those out. And like I said, come back Monday for more great deals, of course, and for more live streams. So until then, I'm Nick.
I'm Zach.
And thank you so much for joining us here at Whole Latte Love. Have a great night and have a great weekend.
I'll see you next time.